In this video, I'm going to discuss how you can write a strong opening line for a descriptive composition. So whether you're taking GCSE or IGCSE English or A-level English, chances are you'll have the opportunity to write a descriptive composition. And one way to set yourself up for success in writing a descriptive composition is to be able to compose a really solid first line. A first line is important because it sets the rest of the composition up for success. It serves as a foundation. It serves as a strong base that can be built on. Now, it may be tempting to think of a first line as opportunity to wow readers with something amazingly artistic, but really the fundamental value of a first line is that it sets up the rest of the piece to be effective. So it doesn't actually have to be fancy to be really good. Let's take a look at a couple examples from literature. In the late summer of that year, we lived in a house in a village that looked across the river and the plain to the mountains. It was a Sunday evening in London, gloomy, close, and stale. Dark spruce forest frowned on either side the frozen waterway. Each one of these initial lines establishes a clear sense of place, a clear atmosphere. It does a lot of the heavy lifting of the work, and it can be built on. And a strong first line is going to address three important characteristics of the setting. First, it's going to address the mood, the sort of feeling of a place. Here's an example. In the hospital waiting room, rows of hard plastic chairs languished under buzzing fluorescent lights. The mood here is a bit antiseptic and uncomfortable, harsh. It also established the geography or the physical features of the place, the most important physical features of a place. So here's another example. The neighborhood consisted of modest but cheerfully painted houses snuggled up to tree-lined streets. Okay, and the last thing that an opening line should really establish, aside from the mood and the most prominent physical features of a place, is the actual weather or physical atmosphere and lighting in a place. An example of this would be the night air was warm and sticky, and colored light spilled from the stalls lining the street, carrying with it the powerful aromas of dozens of different cuisines. By establishing the mood, the geography or physical features, and the physical weather or atmosphere of a place, you get the key elements of what the reader needs to know going forward that can be built on as the piece progresses. In order to actually create a really effective opening line and to cover those three elements, you want to rely on two aspects. One, using load-bearing details. Two, anticipating the assumptions of your reader. Let's talk about both of those. What are load-bearing details? Load-bearing details are the details that communicate the essential facts about your setting, and they pack a lot of information into as few words or phrases as possible. They're the most information-dense details that you can think about for your setting. So here I think an example will help. Let's take a look at Jack London's line. This is the line that reads, "Dark spruce forest frowned on either side the frozen waterway." How does he use load-bearing details? Well, let's take a look. First off, he indicates that the setting is in a forest. So that gives a lot of information, and to make it more precise, he says it's a spruce forest, which indicates that it's somewhere probably in the northern latitudes. And it's a dark spruce forest. So now we know that it's dense and wild. This is so much information about the physical location. In addition to that, he mentions the frozen waterway. So we also know that it's cold, and this gets to the atmosphere, the physical atmosphere of the place. And then he uses words like frowned and dark to get across the mood. This is not a welcoming place. This is probably a dangerous place, or even conveys a sense of malice, but definitely a sense of not being welcome. Jack London is able to use a handful of really effective load-bearing details that communicate a whole lot with just a few words to create a really effective opening line. So how could you do the same thing with your writing? Let's start out with a decent opening that covers the mood, the physical geography, as well as the weather and the light, but doesn't necessarily use load-bearing details, and so is a bit wordy. Tall buildings loomed into a cold gray and cloudy sky as frigid rain pelted the concrete streets and pedestrians ran for shelter from the ferocity of the storm. So this is not bad at all. It's actually quite decent. Let's take a look at it. We have tall buildings that are looming into a sky. So these tall buildings give us a physical location. This must be a city. We have a cold, gray, and cloudy sky. And that gives us the physical atmosphere of the place and the light. As frigid rain pelted the concrete streets, so again, concrete streets gives us more details on the physical setting. Frigid rain gives us the feeling of the atmosphere again, so now we know that it's cold, and it also adds to the mood of the piece. Pedestrians ran for shelter. That conveys a mood of sort of chaos and maybe panic from the ferocity of the storm, which contributes to that overall mood of chaos and panic. So how can we get those a bit more concise? Well, let's take a look at a line that does the same thing, but uses more load-bearing details. Frigid rain lashed the city streets, scattering pedestrians like leaves. So here we have some powerful verbs like lashed and scattering, which really get across the mood of the piece. That gets across the ferocity of the storm and the sort of chaos on the streets below. City streets does a lot of work. It tells that the setting, the physical location, is in a city, and it gives us the street view of that city. And just the single phrase frigid rain does a lot of work. It conveys both the physical atmosphere that is cold and also the lighting that is cloudy. Now, there is one load-bearing detail that I think outshines all the rest for how effective it is at getting across a lot of information with just one or two words. And that load-bearing detail is the name of the setting. Literally, it's just the name that describes what the setting is or where the setting is. For example, if you're describing a beach, include the word beach. If you're describing a city, include the word city. If you're describing the inside of a coffee shop, say coffee shop. By naming the place, you're leveraging all of your readers' background knowledge and experience and their assumptions to fill in the details. You notice that the last example specifically states city streets. It's naming the place, and that does a lot of the work of the opening line. The reason this works so well is because we carry a set of assumptions about different locations. And by simply naming that location, those assumptions come right up in our minds. What do you think about when you think of a beach? Probably a sunny place. You probably think about it in daytime. You probably think about it when it's warm or even maybe hot. Sand, nice water, possibly clear water, possibly a tropical location. These things just come automatically. And that's great because you can use those to really fill in a lot of the information in your piece, but it also comes with a danger. It also comes with the danger that your reader will assume something that you didn't intend. And this brings us to our second key factor for a strong opening line. As you're using load-bearing details to get across the mood, the physical features of the area, and the weather, atmosphere / lighting, anticipate the assumptions that your reader is going to have about your setting. And if those assumptions go against what you're actually presenting, go ahead and get ahead of those and clarify. What do I mean by that? Here, another example will help. What comes to mind when you think about hiking? Probably a forest, a path, midday, nice weather, clear skies, green trees. What if, however, our author wants to write about something completely different? Well, if you don't take the reader's assumptions into consideration ahead of time, you risk writing a kind of confusing passage like this one. The hikers took deep breaths of the forest air as they filed up the path. Above them, the sky was absolutely clear from horizon to horizon. Stars glittered like shimmering ice. A biting, steady wind hissed through the pines, whipping against their jackets, pants, and hoods as they trudged along the ridgeline in the darkness. It was only after the first two sentences that readers were informed that instead of being a nice, idyllic daytime hike through a forest. This was in fact a nighttime hike on the side of a mountain in very cold weather. And that surprise reveal after the first two lines causes the readers to have to go back and reevaluate their mental image and update it and change it in a way that can be disorienting, or at least takes away from the effect. If we understand what the readers are anticipating and understand that our version is going to be different than that, then we can front load or move to the very beginning those key differences that have to do with the physical location, the atmosphere, and the mood of the place. So that might look a little something like this. The hikers filed up the icy ridgeline under a clear night sky, pierced with stars that glittered like shimmering ice. A biting, steady wind hissed through the mountain pines, whipping against their jackets, pants, and hoods. Through their mufflers, they took deep breaths of the forest air, filling their lungs each time with fresh pinpricks of cold. In the very first line here, it's established that these hikers are in a cold atmosphere, that it is nighttime. So we have a night sky, we have icy ridgeline. A ridgeline shows the physical setting, very hilly or mountainous place. And the words icy, pierced, and shimmering ice really get across this feeling of harshness. The mood is that this is a cold, hard, and uninviting place. It's a place to survive. Okay, just to recap. Opening lines are super important because they set up or serve as the foundation for the rest of a descriptive composition. They don't have to be fancy, but they really should establish the mood of a place, the key physical elements or geography of a place, whether that be an indoor area or an outdoor area. And they should also establish the actual weather, atmosphere, and light of a place. And the best way to do that is by using load-bearing details. Those words or phrases that carry a lot of meaning in just a few compact words. And as you're doing that, as you're using load-bearing details to establish these elements, you really want to be aware of the assumptions that a reader might bring, especially when you're naming a place, and then preempt any wrong assumptions in the very first line. And one way you can know if you're doing this right, one way you can know if you're doing this well, ask yourself, if someone read only this sentence, would they be imagining roughly the right kind of place? If the answer is yes, you did it. If you're not sure, a couple things to consider. Read through the line and say, okay, did you clearly establish the essentials of the setting, the mood, the physical characteristics or geography, and the light and weather? And secondly, if you look at your actual setting, does your first line correct any wrong assumptions that readers might have about that place? If you aren't sure, ask a friend, ask a family member or a classmate, or ask your teacher to read and see if what they imagine when reading the piece matches what you intended when you wrote the piece. Practice makes perfect, so I encourage you to write multiple opening lines from multiple different places. As always, best of luck in your studies. I hope that you create some really amazing descriptive compositions. Thank you for watching the video.